All right, Shalom. All praises unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Racha Kodash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. And Shalom to the hopeful elect Akim that are teaching this word. Shalom Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Racha Kodash. Now, as you can see here, this is a video I came across on Instagram, and it says real historical castles of Africa, right? As we know, Israel, like I believe this man in the video is an Israelite, but basically he's making a video because, Edomites mock where black people are from. So, for example, so-called black, we know they're Israelites, but this is the point. They equate Africa with so-called black people, right? So-called Negroes in America, etc., which we're really the children of Israel. But basically the point is he's showing how they show castles in Asia, in Europe, and then how they depict Africa, that mud hut. You were swinging on trees, etc., etc. That was all bullshit propaganda by the so-called white man when he took us down, all right, to dehumanize us and to say we basically come from nothing, which the true history is we were in the lands of Africa because we fled there because of captivity, 70 AD, and we set up kingdoms in different parts of the world, Europe, Africa, so-called the land of Ham, Asia. So even when it shows these Asian castles during the feudal Japan, etc., a lot of that was built and influenced by Jake, all right? Same things in Europe. In Europe, the castles, the spirit of castles was Israelites that built those things in the Middle Ages, man. And even, see, this guy is like kind of harping on the Africa thing, but even in parts of Africa, West Africa, and certain regions within Africa, even North Africa, the Carthaginian Empire, which was Tunisia, Morocco, those regions, there's remnants of castles there, Algeria. Why are those things there? Because so-called Negroes ruled those places, man. And he's gonna show predominantly West Africa and the castles that were there before colonialism. See, because that whole spirit of the mud huts and all that BS that Esau pushed, that's because the devil's in power. And he's not going to tell you who you are, right? What did Esau do? He just enslaved our people and destroyed the history, destroyed the remnants of our history, all right? And then pushed the nonsense that we all come from mud huts. It was all bullshit. So, this guy's made a post supporting Esau, not basically debunking Esau's BS, basically. And I found it pretty interesting, but it's in the scriptures, because I'm going to read some scriptures also. I'm just want to make a point. But yeah. So basically, the so-called white man's a fucking liar, man. That's the point, right? And they've lied on history, all right? And even all these castles in Europe, like the Queen, the castles they sit in Europe, or the palaces they have, that was all Jake, man. They're not the real royals, man. See, the truth is Esau, the so-called white man himself, comes from nothing. He's a fucking caveman, all right? Their real home is bloody rocks and mountains, or really Petra, which is south of Judah, right? Which is a mountainous terrain. And then down the line in the future, yeah, they were in the caves. That was when they were driven forth from among men. But the point is, Esau is really a mountainous people. They're a people of really no history. So let me play this clip here, and then I'm going to read some scriptures.
XOX. There's so much ignorance on that damn app. Oh my God. So I saw this post saying Asian castles, beautiful. European castles, beautiful. African castles, just a simple hut. Always. Oh my God. Why can't people just do the research into African architecture and history? Come on, bro. This is why I make so much content on African history on YouTube. You should check it out. Lion Clan Chief. But anyway, I digress. This is what they think an African castle look like. Oh my God. Now, let's take a look at real African castles, or should I say fortresses, or whatever you want to call them, okay? This is the Kala Fortress, aka the Red Fort. This is in Sudan. It goes back to the Christian Nubian period. It's located in the village of Kandak, I believe how you pronounce it.
Now, obviously, some regions like Sudan and stuff, we know Israelites are there, but the predominant regions would have been mainly like West Africa, parts of South Africa. But even this first one he showed in Sudan, the Christian fort, more than likely was Israelites that built that. And this is when you see it today, the ruins of it. But it's more than likely Israelites that built that because we were everywhere, bro. And when you see castles, castles is really the spirit of Israel. It's the spirit of Jake. All right, castles is not the spirit of other nations. In particular, the so-called white man. If Esau was really into the spirit of castles and that royal kind of build, that's how he would have built his cities. But he hasn't. Where does Esau live in castles today? They don't. All right.
Then you have the Kelafa fort. Yeah, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I'll put the names in the description for you. This was in northern Guinea-Bissau.
So Guinea-Bissau is West Africa, and you can kind of see that is a drawing of what it would have been before colonialism destroyed it. Because remember, Esau bombing knockered and bombed all these castles down. That kind of looks almost like the Bosphorus fort. It looks like the castles that was built in Turkey, which would have been, before the Ottomans sacked Constantinople. Remember, there was that castle, and it was on the Bosphorus, so it was built by the sea, so it was hard to penetrate. But eventually, the Lord brought us down. It looks the same to me. It looks similar. So, what I'm saying is, a nation builds. There's a spirit to every nation, how they like their homes to be, how they build things. This is the spirit of so-called Negroes, so-called black people, Israelites.
Is indigenous to the Cabal Empire of West Africa. Okay, then I'll give you another one, okay? This is the Tobakalta fort, found in central western Senegal, built by the Mandinga.
Senegal, and Mandinga, Senegal, another country filled with Israelites.
People, Mandinka, Mandingo, those type of people, okay? Unfortunately, in 1887 or 1889, the French would attack and destroy that fortress. Unfortunately, like many other historical structures and cities, it's gone, yeah?
There you go. So, and who did that? Esau. And why did Esau do all of that? Esau destroyed all of it. So basically, they were taken over. And when Esau destroyed all of it, in fact, let me let me keep playing this, sorry.
And this is a 3D reconstruction of Usani Dogo's walls. This was a Swahili fort from the 13th century built in the city of Kilwa, Kiswani, in modern-day Tanzania, okay? And this is the image of the fort of Kumasi built in the city of Kumasi by the Asante Kingdom or Asante Empire. This is in modern-day Ghana, or was in modern-day Ghana, should I say. And this is the fortified Segu Palace, which was in modern-day Mali, built by the Bambara Empire. Now, unlike the other structures, many of the other structures that were built, the French did not destroy this one. In fact, they started using it for their own ends and for their own administration. Very funny. Last but definitely not least, this is the 17th century fortress called...
So basically, the spirit of castles is predominantly, that last one he's showing is like Ethiopia, which could have been Jake's as well, because we know Jake's was in that region, right? So, Esau destroyed it during the time of his conquest and our downfall. These things have to be destroyed to erase our history. But a lot of it, especially in Europe, there's a lot of things still standing, a lot of ruins still standing of castles all over England. You have the icons in Russia and Europe, which they tried to destroy all of that. But the Lord kept things for our remembrance. So let me read this. Job 9:24. The earth is given into the hands of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? So the current rulership of the planet Earth is given into the hands of the wicked. Who's the wicked? The so-called white man. The race of the wicked is the so-called white people known as the Edomites biblically. All right? And what they did throughout history is especially with our people. See, because all these other people, East Indians, the Chinese, showing you that these other nations are not Israelites because they all have structure. They all know their languages. They all know their language. They all know, they've not been destroyed as a people. Their history's not been hidden. For the most part, most of these other nations, they know a thing or two about their past empires. The only people that don't know anything of who they are or it was erased from us was so-called black people, Israelites, that lineage of people. All right, Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. But it says it here, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covereth the faces of the judges thereof. He covereth the faces of the judges, meaning what? Who are the true judges of the planet Earth? So-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans. In fact, the one who they ignorantly call J, I'm not going to say the name, but the J word, JC, is a so-called black man. All right? He's a so-called Negro okay, from the tribe of Judah. Yeah, the tribe of Judah, which is so-called black people in America. All right, the people that got taken into slavery, brought to the Americas, brought to Brazil, brought to different parts of South America. That's the tribe of Judah, and mixed in with Benjamin and Levi, but the tribe of Judah, basically. Who the world calls JC is a so-called black man. All right, so the true judges of the earth are so-called Negro, Latino, Native American people, the Israelites. Okay, the true people of the Lord. So Esau covered that history. When he conquered our people, which was all in the Bible prophecy, he covered that history. He had to. You can't conquer a people and let them know that they're great. You have to dehumanize them. You came from nothing. You're nothing but slaves. You're the N-word. You're niggers. You're this. You get me? That's how you do it. So he covereth the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? Yeah, so if all this history is coming back out and the truth's coming out, so if the so-called white man ain't the wicked, then who is? There's that saying, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing everybody he didn't exist. That's what they say, the greatest trick that Satan ever pulled, right? Is to convince people he didn't exist. Well, he does exist, and it's the so-called white man, the Edomites. Okay? And they've covered the faces of the judges. They did that. And that was, basically, obviously, that Jake, he's going into, he's obviously, pissed off at, comments on certain platforms about, where he keeps, he hypes on Africa. But he's basically where so-called black people are from, the mud hut spirit. He's getting on that. And he's got a right to get on it, because the truth is, so-called Negroes weren't swinging on trees and fucking living in mud huts. All right? We had empires, but those empires were destroyed due to colonialism and slavery. This is the truth. All right? But guess what? Just as Esau's destroyed, he's going down now anyway. See, because what's happening now is where basically, let me read this. Bear with me a second. We're basically now in a time of the revealing of the Edomites, the revealing of the wicked, and we're basically in the time of the revealing of the wicked and the end of their rulership, all right? That's why all this truth's coming out. And their rulership's about to be destroyed by nuclear missiles. This is what we're coming into. Their heaven, which is, see, heaven, oh, you remember that song? Ooh, heaven is a place on earth. Remember that song? I can't remember if that's the chorus. Ooh, heaven is a place on earth. I can't remember who sung that, but it just come to my head. But basically, heaven and hell are conditions played out on the planet Earth. So right now, these past 500-600 years, we've been living under the so-called white man's heaven. He's been the one on top. He's been ruling, even longer than that. So from when we were enslaved during the 12th, 13th, 14th century up until today, we've been in so-called white people's power structure, their heaven. They've been having the best of the world, basically, while so-called Negroes, and particularly in the Americas and enslaved around the world, we've had nothing. So we've been in their heaven, and we've been in their heaven, we've been in hell. So the roles are going to be reversed. After their world's destroyed by the missiles, roles will be reversed. Okay? So let me read this here. This is, John 8:44. John 8:44, it says, ye are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Now this was John cursing out the wicked of our people, the wicked of the nation of Israel. But you can also equate this really to the so-called white man, because who's the devil? The so-called white man. Really, John was cursing out our people, saying you behave like the devil himself. But but the devil, the actual real line of the wicked is the so-called white people, the Edomites. But it says here, ye of your father the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. And so basically, the wicked are liars, basically. Which is,
Hello, Moto.
yeah, the wicked are liars, basically. Okay? The wicked are liars, which is the so-called white man. Okay? They're the wicked. All right? It says, when he speaketh a lie, It says, hold on a minute. So it says, and he abode not in the truth. It says, when he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Yeah, and that's the Edomites. They're liars and the father of it, man. Their whole history is about lying. All right? You know, even till this day, all they do is lie. Even with all this truths coming out. Now, for example, the biggest lie they've told is that they're the real people of God, basically. That's why they claim in the land of Israel, which ain't theirs. You know, they're saying they're the people. They said that who the world calls JC is a so-called white man with blonde hair and blue eyes, which everyone knows now that's all BS. So that's part of them being the fathers of lies, man. Okay? Is in their nature, is in the nature of the Edomites to basically to lie. Okay? It's in the nature of Esau to basically lie, man. And that was the first thing he had to do when he conquered our people, destroyed our relics, destroyed our castles. Really in West Africa, he decimated most of them, but the remnants are still there. In Europe, he tried to do the same thing, but the Lord kept things. Why? So when we get this knowledge back for our remembrance. All right, because what Esau don't tell you is, and that's another thing, you know, it's a video for another time, but like the Dark Ages history, for example, why do they call it the Dark Ages? The truth of why they call it the Dark Ages, Esau spewed the lie and the narrative that, oh, it was a time void of any light and, you know, people was in a destitute place. No, they call it the Dark Ages because really it's a play on words, but it's the Dark Ages because the dark people were ruling. Spain, Portugal, England, Scotland, Ireland, it was all ruled by so-called Negroes. Spain, you had a period of rulership by Judah, the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, Levi, but they were going under the Islamic culture, but they were Israelites, so-called black men that were Islamic. And they ruled those regions. They ruled Spain and Portugal and Sicily and Italy for like 800 years. All right? And you know, a lot of those people in those regions know that. You know, so for example, in Spain, they have like annual, even in England, they do this. They have like annual, yearly, like blackface where they dress as Moors and shit like that. Why are they putting blackface on, dressing like Moors? They're mocking our people, man. All right? And they know our people was over there. It's really like a slap in the face towards our people. So let me read this here. Ecclesiastes 10:6. Folly is set in great dignity, and the rich sit in low place. I have seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth. Yeah, so folly is set in great dignity. That's this system we're in, man. It's a BS system full of lies, just comedian, weird shit. You know, wouldn't say comedian because comedy's good. But, you know, just basically BS, man. Folly. Folly is basically complete nonsense, man. You know? Shit that doesn't really mean anything. So folly is set in great dignity. And the rich sit in low place. Who are the rich? Our people. The Israelites, the true Israelites. We're sitting, when we say sit in a low place, we're in hell. We're in hell in the system of the so-called white man. He's in his heaven, we're in hell. So we're at the bottom, we're poor, we're destitute. We're looking for answers, which we're getting them now through Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai and His truth. And we see the end. The end is near, man. The end of this world is near and our world is coming. Our rulership, our turn to be on top is coming. It says, I have seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth. And who are the servants upon horses? The so-called white people, the Edomites. Really, they're elites. The Rothschilds, Rockefellers. You know, you see the Queen riding a horse, so-called Queen Lizzie, so-called Prince, so-called Prince William, all these devils, man, these Edomites. They're in the high place. The horse represents rulership. They're in that high place. And it says, and princes walking as servants upon the earth. And who are the princes? Our people, man. See? We're the true people of the Lord. Right? We're the princes. That's why every chance Esau has gotten since he's been on top, what does he do? He's always trying to dehumanize and belittle our people. But the truth's coming out now. And really the truth's coming out that these Edomites are really a low people, man. These are the people of nothing, basically. You know? So, you know, with that, I'm going to say all praise unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the hopeful elect. I'm teaching this word. Shalom Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Ruach Kodash. Shalom. Shalom.